I stared at my phone screen, the familiar sting of disappointment settling in my chest like an old, unwelcome friend. You forgot again, didn't you? The words came out quieter than I intended, barely masking the years of hurt that had crystallized into this moment. My name is Anita Coleman. I'm 27 years old, and I was sitting alone in my Charleston apartment with a store-bought cupcake and a single flickering candle, marking the 5th consecutive year my parents had completely forgotten my birthday. The vanilla frosting was too sweet, the kind that leaves a coating on your tongue, but I'd bought it anyway because some part of me still hoped this year would be different. Oh honey, I'm so sorry, Mom's voice crackled through the phone, though it carried about as much genuine remorse as a telemarketer's apology. We've been so busy with Sebastian's promotion at the marketing firm, and helping Olivia get her catering business off the ground. You know how it is. I did know how it was. Sebastian, my 25-year-old golden child brother, had received a brand new BMW for his last birthday, midnight blue with leather seats that still smelled like luxury. The surprise party at the country club had featured 30 of his closest friends, champagne that cost more than my monthly rent, and a jazz quartet that played until midnight. Olivia, my 23-year-old baby sister, had gotten a $15,000 check to launch her dream catering company, along with a weekend spa retreat that Mom called her pre-business stress relief package. Meanwhile, I'd spent my birthday working a double shift at the dental office where I cleaned other people's teeth for a living, coming home to an empty apartment and not even a text message waiting for me. I understand, I replied, though understanding and accepting were two completely different creatures living in my chest. I just thought maybe this year would be different. We'll make it up to you, sweetheart. Maybe we can do something next weekend. The same promise she'd made every year for the past 5 years. Next weekend would arrive and disappear like morning mist, forgotten the moment Sebastian's birthday planning consumed her attention again. After hanging up, I stared at that pathetic cupcake and felt something fundamental shift inside me, like tectonic plates grinding against each other deep beneath the surface. This wasn't just about forgotten birthdays anymore. This was about being invisible in my own family, about watching my siblings receive unconditional love while I scraped by on emotional scraps, but what my family didn't know, what they couldn't see because they'd never bothered to look, was that their neglect had forged me into something they'd never expected. While they saw me as the forgotten daughter, I was quietly becoming something much more dangerous, completely independent. Growing up in the Coleman household meant learning early that love came with a price tag, and apparently, I couldn't afford it. Dad owned a successful accounting firm downtown, his office windows overlooking the harbor where million-dollar yachts bobbed like floating status symbols. Mom sold high-end real estate, the kind where she wore designer suits to show plantation-style mansions to clients who paid in cash. Between them, they earned enough to provide a comfortable lifestyle, but comfort was rationed in our house like water during a drought. Sebastian had always been the chosen one, tall, charismatic, gifted with the kind of natural charm that made strangers want to help him succeed. When he expressed interest in tennis, they hired a private coach whose hourly rate exceeded my weekly grocery budget. When he decided on business school, they funded his MBA at a university whose name dropped jaws at cocktail parties. His birthday celebrations were legendary events that required professional photographers and catered meals from restaurants I couldn't afford to look at through the windows. Olivia, as the baby, received different but equally generous treatment. Her artistic temperament wasn't just tolerated, it was celebrated, nurtured, funded with the kind of parental investment that built dreams into realities. Culinary school, internships at award-winning restaurants, and recently, seed money that transformed her sketches into an actual business. Then there was me, the middle child who'd somehow learned to make herself small enough to slip through the cracks of their attention. I'd been baking my own birthday cakes since I was 12, working part-time jobs through high school to buy clothes that didn't scream clearance rack. When I graduated from dental hygiene school, a profession I'd chosen because it was practical, stable, and I could afford the training, I received a greeting card with a $20 bill tucked inside and a note that said, "Congratulations on your achievement." When Sebastian graduated with his MBA, they threw a party that cost more than my entire education, but their dismissal had taught me something my siblings would never learn: how to build a foundation that couldn't be shaken by anyone else's approval or disapproval. 3 years ago, I'd started something small in the evenings after work, a freelance bookkeeping service for local businesses. It began with one restaurant owner who'd heard through a friend that I was good with numbers and desperate for extra income. Word spread through Charleston's network of small business owners like honey through warm bread. Soon I was managing books for 12 different companies, working by lamplight in my apartment while my family assumed I was struggling to make ends meet. The money from bookkeeping went straight into savings and investments. I drove a modest Honda Civic that I'd bought and paid for myself, lived in a small apartment where I could hear my upstairs neighbor's television through thin walls, and watched every penny like it might disappear if I blinked. While my family interpreted my independence as pride, it was actually survival instinct. When you know help isn't coming, you learn to create your own rescue plan. The breaking point arrived 6 months after my forgotten birthday, on a Tuesday morning that started ordinary until my phone rang with news that rewrote everything I thought I knew about my family's capacity for cruelty. "Anita, we need to talk about your car." Dad's voice cut through the phone line with characteristic bluntness, no greeting, no warmth, just business. "What about my car?" I asked, walking to my window where I could see my reliable Civic parked in its usual spot, the car that represented 3 years of saving and sacrifice. "We've sold it," he stated matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather or weekend plans. "Olivia's catering business is struggling, and she needed immediate cash to keep the doors open. Your car was the most liquid asset we could access quickly." The words hit me like a physical blow, leaving me breathless and dizzy. "You sold my car. The car that I bought and paid for. The car that's titled in my name." "Don't be dramatic, Anita. We forged your signature on the title. Olivia's business is more important than your transportation needs right now. You can take the bus to work until you figure out something else." I stood frozen at my window, staring at the empty parking space where my independence used to sit. They hadn't just sold my property without permission, they'd committed fraud by forging legal documents. But what stunned me more than the crime was the casual way Dad delivered the news, as if my needs were so insignificant they didn't warrant consideration. "How much did you get for it?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. $18,000. Every penny went to Olivia's business account. She's got a big catering contract coming up, and this will help her fulfill it properly. $18,000, the exact amount they'd spent on Sebastian's BMW down payment. The same amount they'd gifted Olivia for her original business startup. My car, which represented years of overtime shifts and careful budgeting, had been reduced to emergency funding for my sister's failing venture. After he hung up, I sat in my empty apartment feeling something crystallize inside me, hard and cold and absolutely final. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, committed an act that revealed exactly how little they thought of me. But as I processed the shock and betrayal, I realized something else. They'd just handed me the motivation I needed to execute a plan I'd been unconsciously developing for months. It was time to show my family exactly who they'd been underestimating. All these years, the next few weeks were a masterclass in performance art. I took the bus to work each morning, letting my family witness exactly how their decision had complicated my life. When Sebastian occasionally offered rides, I accepted, with gracious gratitude that masked the storm building beneath my calm surface. When Olivia texted updates about her catering success, thanking me for my sacrifice, I responded with supportive messages that revealed nothing about what I was actually planning. But while they saw a struggling sister adapting to difficult circumstances, I was executing the most important business plan of my life. During lunch breaks, I met with real estate agents in coffee shops that smelled like possibility and ambition. Evenings were spent researching properties and reviewing financial documents that painted a picture of success they couldn't imagine. Weekends found me driving rental cars to property viewings, always careful to return them before my family might spot me with transportation they hadn't provided. My bookkeeping business had grown beyond my wildest projections. What started as evening side work had evolved into a full-scale consulting operation. I now managed finances for 23 small businesses, my reputation for accuracy and discretion generating referrals that kept my calendar booked months in advance. The income from consulting, combined with my dental hygienist salary and aggressive saving habits, had created a financial foundation that would have shocked my family into silence. 3 weeks after they sold my car, I found it, the perfect property nestled in the mountains of North Carolina, 2 hours from Charleston. The house sat on 5 acres of wooded land with 600 feet of private lake frontage. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased water views that belonged in magazines. The asking price was $450,000. I made an offer that same afternoon. Negotiations took 2 weeks, during which I maintained my daily routine of bus rides and graciously accepting Sebastian's occasional transportation charity. My family would ask about my situation, and I'd sigh about saving for another used car. Dad would nod approvingly, reminding me that helping Olivia had been the right choice for the family. Mom would suggest I could probably find something reliable for under $10,000 if I looked hard enough. Their condescension fueled my excitement about what was coming. They saw me as someone who'd struggled to afford a decent used car, while I was preparing to close on a property that cost more than Sebastian's BMW and Olivia's business investment combined. The closing took place on a Friday afternoon in April. Sunshine streaming through the attorney's office windows as I signed documents that transferred ownership of the lake house to me. paid in full with savings and a small mortgage my consulting income could easily support. When the final papers were signed and those keys were placed in my palm, I felt accomplishment surge through me that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with proving what I was capable of achieving. That weekend, I drove my newly purchased Toyota SUV to the lake house and spent 2 days creating a home that reflected who I really was, not who my family thought I should be. I arranged furniture that spoke to my personal style, set up a home office overlooking water that sparkled like scattered diamonds, stocked the kitchen with wine that cost more than my weekly grocery budget used to be. Sunday evening found me on the deck, watching sunset paint the lake in brilliant oranges and purples that no photographer could capture. I pulled out my phone, selected a photo of the view from my deck, added a simple caption, and hit publish, birthday gift to myself. Within minutes, notifications flooded in. High school friends, work colleagues, dental hygiene classmates, everyone congratulating me and expressing amazement at the stunning property. But the responses I was most interested in hadn't arrived yet. I poured wine into a glass that caught the last rays of sunlight and waited for my family to discover what their forgotten daughter had accomplished. Monday morning brought 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I sat on my deck with coffee, watching morning mist rise from the lake like spirits being born from water, while my phone buzzed with increasingly frantic attempts at contact. Dad's first voicemail was characteristically direct. Anita, call me immediately. We need to discuss this house situation. Mom's messages grew more emotional with each attempt. Sweetheart, please call us back. We're worried and need to understand what's happening. Sebastian's texts mixed admiration with concern. Holy shit. Anita. That house is incredible. How did you afford it? Are you okay financially? Olivia's messages started supportive but quickly turned suspicious. The house looks amazing, I'm so happy for you, but also confused about how you could afford something like that when you've been taking the bus to work. I waited until evening to respond with a group text. Thank you for your concern. I'm doing very well and will be in touch soon. That message only intensified their desperation. By Tuesday, the missed calls reached 31 and Mom had started calling my workplace. My supervisor approached me during lunch with an amused expression. Anita, your mother has called here 4 times today asking if you're having some kind of mental health crisis. She seems very concerned about a house purchase. Wednesday brought an ultimatum from Dad. You have until Thursday to call us back and explain this situation, or we're driving up there to find you. Thursday arrived bright and clear. I'd spent the week setting up my home office and conducting video calls with 3 new consulting clients. The lake house was perfect for business, quiet, professional, inspiring. I was reviewing financial reports when car doors slammed in my driveway. Through the window, I watched my entire family emerge from Dad's Mercedes like some dysfunctional invasion force. They approached the front door as a united front, probably having strategized during the 2-hour drive. I opened the door before they could knock, greeting them with a calm smile that I knew would unsettle them more than any emotional outburst. Hello, everyone. I was wondering when you'd decide to visit. Mom immediately stepped forward, anxiety and frustration flushing her face. Anita, what is going on? How did you buy this house? Are you in trouble? Are you involved in something illegal? Dad pushed past her, scanning my home's interior with an accountant's calculating eye. This property has to be worth at least $400,000. Your dental office salary couldn't support this purchase. We need answers. I stepped aside, gesturing them in. Please, come in. I think it's time we had a long overdue conversation about money, family, and respect. I led them through the house slowly, letting them absorb the full scope of what I'd accomplished. The open concept living area with vaulted ceilings and stone fireplace. The gourmet kitchen with granite countertops and appliances that belonged in magazines. The master suite with walk-in closets and spa-like bathrooms. The home office overlooking the lake where my computer displayed spreadsheets from my thriving consulting business. Sebastian whistled low. Anita, this place is incredible. But seriously, how did you swing this? Before we get to that, I said, settling into the leather armchair facing the sofa where my family had arranged themselves like defendants awaiting judgment, I want to understand something. You've been calling and texting frantically for 4 days, desperate to reach me. When was the last time before this week that any of you initiated contact with me? Silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Olivia shifted uncomfortably, studying the room rather than meeting my eyes. Sebastian stared at his hands. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. I'll help you out, I continued calmly. Sebastian, you last texted me 6 weeks ago to ask if I could cover your half of Dad's birthday gift because you were short after buying new golf clubs. Olivia, you called 3 weeks ago to thank me for the car money. Mom, you last called 8 weeks ago to ask if I could work extra hours to help with family finances. Dad, our last conversation was when you told me you'd sold my car. Dad leaned forward aggressively. That's enough guilt-tripping, Anita. We're here because we're concerned about how you afforded this house. Something doesn't add up. You're absolutely right, Dad. Something doesn't add up. I walked to my office, returning with a folder I'd prepared for exactly this moment. For 3 years, I've been running a bookkeeping and financial consulting business. I manage finances for 23 small businesses, and my monthly consulting income alone is more than double my dental hygiene salary. I opened the folder, spreading bank statements, client contracts, and tax returns across the coffee table like evidence in a court case. I've saved aggressively, invested wisely, and built a business you never bothered to ask about because you assumed I had nothing worth discussing. Mom picked up a bank statement, her eyes widening as she scanned the numbers. Anita, these balances. You've had this much money for how long? Long enough to help when Olivia needed funding. If anyone had asked instead of stealing my car, I replied. Long enough to contribute to Sebastian's celebrations, if anyone had invited me to participate. Long enough to be treated like a valued family member, if anyone had seen me as more than an afterthought. Olivia's voice came out small and defensive. We didn't know you had money. You never said anything. I never said anything because no one ever asked me anything, I shot back. For 5 years, you've forgotten my birthday while throwing elaborate parties for Sebastian. You've given Olivia tens of thousands while I struggled with bus transportation. You've made decisions affecting my property without consulting me because you assumed I was too poor and powerless to matter. Dad's face had turned red. If you had this money, why didn't you offer to help when we needed it? I stared at him incredulously. When exactly was I supposed to offer? Between being forgotten and having my car stolen? You never asked for my help, Dad. You just took what you wanted and assumed I'd be grateful for scraps of attention. The room fell silent except for gentle water lapping against the shore outside. My family sat surrounded by evidence of my success, finally understanding they'd systematically underestimated the most financially stable person in the room. I want to show you something else, I said, opening my laptop to a document I'd prepared weeks earlier. This is a detailed record of every family celebration, dinner invitation, and financial request I've received over the past 5 years. I turned the screen toward them, revealing a spreadsheet documenting their systematic exclusion of me. Sebastian's birthdays showed elaborate celebrations where I was never invited. Family dinners were noted as told about dinner day of or not informed until after. Financial requests showed Sebastian and Olivia receiving significant gifts while I was never asked to contribute or even informed about family decisions. You want to know why I didn't offer to help? My voice remained steady but carried an edge that could cut glass. Because you never treated me like family. You treated me like a convenient afterthought who should be grateful for whatever attention you spared. Mom's face had gone pale scrolling through the documentation. Anita, you didn't realize because you didn't want to realize, I interrupted. It was easier to assume I had nothing to offer than to include me in family decisions. Easier to forget my birthday than put effort into celebrating me like you celebrated Sebastian. Dad stood abruptly, his accountant's mind processing implications. This documentation, you've been planning this confrontation for months. I've been protecting myself for years, I corrected. This house isn't revenge, Dad. This house is evidence. Evidence that I don't need your approval to succeed. Evidence that your assumptions about my capabilities were completely wrong. Evidence that treating me like an outsider was the biggest mistake you could have made. Sebastian finally spoke, his voice subdued. Anita, I'm sorry. I never thought about how it looked from your perspective. You never thought about me at all, I replied simply. None of you did. Olivia became defensive, panic creeping into her voice. You're being unfair. We had no way of knowing you were secretly wealthy. If you'd told us about your business, things would have been different. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Would they have been different, Olivia? Or would you have started asking me for money instead of Dad? Would Sebastian have invited me to his parties, or just expected me to help pay for them? That's not fair, Sebastian protested, but his voice lacked conviction. What's not fair is selling someone's car without permission and expecting gratitude, I shot back. What's not fair is planning family gatherings and forgetting to invite one of your children. What's not fair is assuming someone has nothing to contribute because they don't ask for handouts. Dad studied the financial documents, his expression shifting from anger to something resembling respect. Your business income is impressive, Anita. You've built something substantial. I built it alone, I emphasized. While you funded Sebastian's lifestyle and Olivia's dreams, I built my own future. While you forgot my birthdays, I created financial security. While you treated me like a burden, I became the most successful person in this room. The truth of that statement settled over them like a weight. Looking at my family, I saw the exact moment they realized what they'd lost, not just potential financial contributions, but my respect, my trust, and my willingness to be treated as less than I was worth. Mom began crying softly. We can fix this, Anita. We can do better. No, I said quietly. You can't fix this because it isn't about doing better. This is about who you chose to be when you thought I had nothing to offer. That choice revealed everything I needed to know about how you really see me. I walked to the window overlooking the lake, my back to my family as they sat in stunned silence, finally understanding the full scope of what their favoritism had cost them. As I watched the sunset paint the water in brilliant colors that evening, alone in my beautiful home, I reflected on the journey that brought me here. My family's neglect had ultimately been the greatest gift they could have given me. It forced me to become entirely self-reliant and showed me that the people who truly matter are those who choose to see and value you for who you are, not those who only notice you when you have something they want. Sometimes the most profound act of love is learning to love yourself enough to walk away from those who refuse to see your worth. ***, share this story if it touched your heart, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful tales of resilience and self-discovery. ***.